The Egyptian president reaffirms Egypt's long-standing rejection of the displacement of Palestinians. US president calls for an end to the war in Gaza, saying a ceasefire is possible. And Egypt's foreign minister expresses hopes for achieving international consensus on recognizing the Palestinian state. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has called for urgent international action to stop the war in Gaza, stressing Egypt's continued commitment to peace efforts and humanitarian support. In a series of remarks, he said Cairo is working closely with Qatar and the United States to help the conflict, secure the release of detainees, and ensure aid reaches civilians. President al-Sisi reaffirmed Egypt's long-standing rejection of the displacement of Palestinians and warned such actions would undermine the two-state solution. He noted that Gaza needs 600 to 700 aid trucks daily under normal circumstances and that Egypt has hundreds of trucks ready to enter the Strip. There is nothing preventing aid from entering Gaza from our side, he said, adding that Rafah crossing must remain open from the Palestinian side. President Sisi appealed directly to US President Donald Trump and urged all world leaders to make every effort to hold the war and relieve Gaza's humanitarian crisis. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has urged international cooperation to end the Gaza war, ensure humanitarian aid access, prevent Palestinian displacement, and pursue a peaceful two-state solution.
حريصين على ان احنا نكون مشاركتنا مشاركة إيجابية مع شركائنا في قطر والولايات المتحدة الأمريكية.
US President Donald Trump, speaking during a visit to Scotland, called for an end to the war in Gaza, saying a ceasefire is possible. Standing alongside UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Trump stressed the urgent need to provide food and safety to civilians in Gaza. I told Israel, I told Netanyahu, maybe it's time to do it differently, he said, calling the conflict a tragic situation. Trump said he would discuss Gaza with Starmer during their meeting. Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati has highlighted the critical timing of the two-state solution conference and expressed hopes for achieving international consensus on recognizing the Palestinian state. Abdulati emphasized ongoing collaboration with the United States and Qatar to secure a ceasefire in Gaza. Welcoming France's commitment to recognizing Palestine, he also pledged to organize a reconstruction conference for Gaza immediately after the conflict ends, underscoring Egypt's active role in promoting peace and recovery. Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan has praised the French president's resolve to recognize the state of Palestine and called for an immediate end to the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Speaking from New York, he reaffirmed commitment to fulfilling the Palestinian people's aspirations and described the conference as a pivotal moment to advance the two-state solution and bring an end to the occupation. Qatar's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs has emphasized that peace narratives must align with international law and the two-state solution. Speaking from New York, he stressed the importance of building trust through humanitarian efforts and called for decisive actions to combat hate speech, underscoring the need for principled approaches to achieve lasting peace. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has condemned Israel's ongoing actions in the occupied Palestinian territories, calling them illegal and unacceptable. Guterres denounced what he termed the creeping annexation of the West Bank as illegal and the wholesale destruction of Gaza as intolerable. Let's be clear. The creeping annexation of the occupied West Bank is illegal. It must stop. The wholesale destruction of Gaza is intolerable and it must stop, he said. Guterres also warned against unilateral moves that could permanently derail the prospects from a two-state solution, insisting they must stop. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry has said that the ongoing UN conference on the two-state solution has reinforced international diplomatic support for Palestinian statehood. In a statement, the ministry urged all countries to actively engage in efforts to protect the two-state solution and achieve lasting peace. It affirmed its commitment to translating the conference's momentum into practical steps to end the occupation, calling the two-state solution the cornerstone of security, stability, and prosperity in the region. Gaza's Ministry of Health has reported that 147 Palestinians, including 88 children, have died from starvation caused by the Israeli blockade. Despite a small increase in aid deliveries, 14 people succumbed to hunger and malnutrition in the past 24 hours. The ongoing crisis highlights the urgent need for expanded humanitarian access. Former U.S. President Barack Obama has condemned the deepening hunger crisis in Gaza, calling the reported starvation deaths a travesty and demanding immediate action to ensure aid reaches civilians. In a post on social media platform X, Obama said a lasting resolution to the conflict must include the return of all hostages and an end to Israeli military operations. However, he stressed the urgent need to prevent further loss of innocent life due to hunger. Aid must be permitted to reach people in Gaza, he wrote. There is no justification for keeping food and water away from civilian families. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected claims of starvation in Gaza, claiming instead that Israel has allowed humanitarian aid into the enclave throughout the conflict. There is no policy of starvation in Gaza, Netanyahu said, calling such accusations a bold-faced lie. Netanyahu claimed that Israel has facilitated the entry of nearly 2 million tons of food and that hundreds of aid trucks are currently stalled on the Gazan side of Karam Abu Salim crossing due to ongoing combat and logistical delays by international agencies, including the United Nations. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has warned that the gates of hell will open in Gaza if Hamas does not release the 50 detainees still held since October the 7th, 2023. Katz said Israel would escalate its military operations beyond what has been done with great force. He outlined the occupying military's tactics, including pre-warnings, air and ground strikes, and holding cleared areas to prevent Hamas from regrouping. Yemenis Houthis have announced they would target any ships associated with the companies doing business with Israeli ports, regardless of nationality, as part of the fourth phase of their military operations against Israel. In a televised statement, the Houthis warned ships would be attacked if companies ignored their warnings and urged countries to pressure Israel to end its Gaza blockade to avoid further escalation. In May, the United States reached an unexpected deal with the Houthis to hold bombing in exchange for a pause in attacks on shipping, but the Houthis maintained that Israel was excluded from this agreement. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here's what we have been covering. The Egyptian president reaffirms Egypt's long-standing rejection of the displacement of Palestinians. U.S. president calls for an end to the war in Gaza, saying a ceasefire is possible. And Egypt's foreign minister expresses hopes for achieving international consensus on recognizing the Palestinian state. This concludes our news bulletin for this hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EG to stay informed. Thank you very much for watching, and until we meet again tomorrow at 4 p.m. call local 10, this ends our transmission for today. Thank you very much for watching.